Chapter 15, Year 884 PXF. Spring.
Hey, you hungry?
Yanri asked leadingly. The question seemed far away and almost dreamlike to Osman, who had drifted off into a light doze listening to Yanri's moment-by-moment retelling of his preparation and journey to Mornasaran. His stomach responded for him, letting out a loud growl. Yanri laughed and rolled his head to the side, placing his ear on Osman's belly, pretending to listen intently.
Is that where you were hiding that saldrig?
Yanri asked playfully. At the mention of a saldrig, Osman's consciousness sprang to awareness.
What? No, there's not a saldrig in me. Why would you say that?
Osman answered defensively. Yanri sat up and looked at Osman questioningly.
The roar earlier? It sounds like it's right here.
Yanri playfully and overenthusiastically slapped Osman's stomach hard, knocking the breath out of him and eliciting a loud "oof" from Osman.
Oh, right.
Osman played along, sitting up and slamming the heels of his hands into Yanri's shoulders, pushing him back down into the sand. Rolling to his feet in a single fluid motion, Osman offered his hand to Yanri as he scanned the buildings along the lagoon promenade.
Where do you think we can find food?
He asked. Slyly, he added,
That is, if you are willing to be seen with someone dressed as hideous as me.
Yanri grabbed Osman's offered hand, pulling harder than necessary in an attempt to topple him as he got to his feet. But Osman stood sturdy as an ironwood.
Oh, I have no intention to sit at a table with you. We'll get something we can eat while we walk to find you clothes.
Yanri eyed Osman's mismatched outfit.
Are these even yours? That's another long story,
Osman replied as they walked barefoot down the beach, carrying their boots in hand. Osman caught the smell of meat pies frying nearby, and his stomach let out another loud groan. Yanri laughed and teased.
We'll make it, big guy. When was the last time you ate?
At the question, Osman was surprised by the realization that he was so famished. He had eaten the matriarch's weight in blubbery seal flesh the night before, which should have satiated him for days. Alarice's words revisited him regarding his soul-channeling transformations.
You must remember, all change comes with a cost. Sometimes just the food in your belly, other times something more.
Osman didn't want to contemplate something more if shifting from Mist Owl back to himself ate up over 15 pounds of seal flesh, along with the fish the matriarch had grabbed as a snack just a few hours earlier. Osman spotted the stand selling the savory-smelling pastries from over 100 yards away and made a beeline for them. His anticipation and hunger grew into voracious desire. With the emotion, an unknown keel began to manifest with it. Osman felt his canine teeth grow into the long saber fangs of his saldrig form. A feeling similar to the keel of his awe becoming giant versions of the matriarch's wings. Knowing the saldrig fangs he felt couldn't possibly fit in his current mouth and would extend nearly down to his chest, the new keel didn't drive Osman to check his teeth with his hands, instead only running his tongue across them to be sure. Osman stopped dead in his tracks, Yanri slamming into his back with the sudden arrest in his forward momentum.
What the hell's, man?
Yanri asked accusingly. Osman stood frozen, looking away from Yanri. Panic began to inflate his eyeballs, and the feeling of the throbbing zit reappearing on the bridge of his nose. Osman probed his canine teeth with his tongue again, making sure he wasn't imagining things. Nope, what he was feeling was real. His canine teeth were longer. And sharper. Not saldrig-sized and not nearly as large as his desire for food made them feel, but these were not the same teeth he had even just moments ago. Osman's mind raced for an excuse why he stopped and to answer Yanri.
Oh!
Osman shoved his hand in the pocket of the cotton breeches he wore.
I only have this platinum. Do you think they will have change?
Osman held the coin over his shoulder, still facing away from Yanri.
Is that it? I've got you covered.
Yanri shoved Osman forward and wrapped his arm around Osman's shoulders to guide him toward the pie stand. Once there, Yanri took charge as Osmond tried to look natural with an awkward, closed-lip smile. Yanri purchased a bag of a half-dozen of the delicious-smelling meat pies and handed them to Osmond as he paid with a few silver. Hoping that satiating his hunger would get his teeth back to normal, Osmond quickly shoved a whole pie in his mouth before Yanri could turn around.
Whoa there, big guy. You planning on saving any for me?
Yanri playfully accused. Osmond grabbed another pie while holding the first one in his mouth and handed over the bag. The savory meat pie was just as delicious as it smelled, with just the right amount of peppery spices to make his tongue burn. After devouring the first pie, Osmond could feel the keel of the ghostly Saldric fangs begin to fade. With a swipe of his tongue, he confirmed his actual canine teeth had started to recede as well, beginning to return to their normal shape. Just to be sure, Osmond shoved the second pie into his mouth immediately after the first. Yanri looked at Osmond speculatively. He felt Yanri's gaze feeding his story to fit his mismatched, ill-fitting clothes, his unkempt, overlong curls, the single platinum coin, and now the ravenous hunger. Not one able to mask his emotions, Yanri's face flashed with what Osmond read as jovial friendship, to pity, then to resolve, and back to its original camaraderie as Osmond watched.
Now for clothes!
Yanri exclaimed with his usual exuberance, and then shoved a pie in his mouth to match Osmond. Osmond's teeth thankfully returned to normal after his third pie, but it didn't stop him from having a fourth when Yanri begged off after his second one. Further down the beach, the two found a brightly colored shopping district with various shops selling all kinds of wares. Around the shops, the sand transitioned to sidewalks paved with thin cross-sections of ironwood branches as large as tabletops, polished to showcase their mineral-laden, sparkling growth rings. Osmond tried in vain to get a moment apart from Yanri to purchase some light armor suitable for venturing into the deep forests of Mornasarin. Eventually, he would need to begin his search for the Eurycean Inception to discover his father's and Riken's fate, but Yanri had no intention of letting them have a second apart. Working with one of the dismissive vendors who eyed his boots suspiciously, Osmond was worried that even with the platinum coin, he could only afford a single set of clothes suited only for around the city. However, after Yanri produced a writ of credit from his family in Melisari, suddenly Osmond's single platinum was plenty enough to purchase multiple tunics, jerkins, and leathers. From the goofball bundle of emotions at the dock and on the beach, Yanri transformed into a shrewd bargainer and savvy buyer in the shops. Osmond didn't follow their back and forth, but when all was said and done, Yanri handed back 4 gold and a couple of silvers as his change from the transaction.
Thanks for the help,
Osmond said gratefully.
I got you, buddy. Remember? We're stuck with each other,
Yanri replied affably. After Osmond had changed into some of his newly purchased items and left behind their purchases that needed to be tailored and picked up later, Yanri added,
Let's see what the rest of Feldtree has to offer with what's left of the day, and then we can head up to Bowtown tomorrow.
Feldtree? Bowtown? Osmond asked, confused.
According to one of the know-it-alls on the ship, this is Feldtree Lagoon, and most Temptari call Upper Luminaria Bowtown.
Yanri pointed a finger up as he said the latter. Osmond looked up. From this angle, he saw that the massive branches of the World Tree overhanging the far end of the lagoon held aloft exotic and elegant buildings of all shapes and sizes. Osmond could see the buildings had multiple floors and intricate architecture, but against the scale of the World Tree, they seemed no larger than birdhouses. Wow, Osmond said, awestruck. He pulled his eyes away before he was once again afflicted with the keel of the matriarch's phantom wings, but couldn't help but be amazed. The two spent the rest of the afternoon circumnavigating Feldtree Lagoon. Yanri suggested they find a spice house to while away a few hours, but Osmond talked him out of it. He wasn't sure how the mildly narcotic drug that similarly affected Uldani as alcohol affected humans would sit with his new and unfamiliar physiology. The last thing he needed was to grow antlers or a tail unexpectedly. After a full day of exploring, eating, and drinking, the two arrived back at the shopping district where they had started. The moon had risen bright overhead, and both were afflicted with tired feet, aching bellies, and exhausted legs.
Well, I'm heading to the Windward Star, where I have boarding arranged. Where are you staying?
Yanri asked as he plopped down on a bench. Osmond hadn't thought that far ahead. He had planned to find an inn and use some of his remaining coin to grab the cheapest room he could find. After a slight pause, Osmond replied,
I'm just gonna grab a room. I'm good.
Yanri picked up on the pause and asked,
You know New Temptari have flooded the city, right? Rooms won't be easy to come by for several months.
Osmond didn't have an answer. In their whole circuit of the lagoon, while he hadn't really been looking, Osmond also hadn't seen any inns that he could return to, just taverns and shops.
Let's see what mine looks like, and if we can make it work, you can stay there tonight,
Yanri suggested.
And we can make it work. I am not letting my only friend sleep outside on your first night here.
The Windward Star was an upscale boarding house with a stuffy older woman who ran the foyer receiving lobby like a military operation. Yanri presented a sealed letter, and after taking both of their names, she handed Yanri 2 keys. She gave quick directions to the room and pointed to the stairs. The room was on the 5th floor and well appointed. It was a bit larger than Osmond's old room in the Sojourn's Rest, and in addition to the large double bed and basic furniture, the main feature was a small balcony. Osmond crossed the room and stepped through its open doors, relishing the cool breeze that flowed into the room. Out on the balcony, there was a stunning view of the lagoon, the moonlit sea beyond, and the wall of fog shrouding the island. From inside, he heard Yanri's voice.
Great! It's a double! We'll share the bed tonight and see if we can find you something tomorrow,
said Yanri.
Or if we decide we want to be roommates, we will see if the old crone downstairs has something bigger for the both of us.
When Osmond re-entered the room, Yanri was stripped down to his underbreeches and sprawled out on the bed. Osmond hesitated a bit, unsure of how this would play out. Osmond had been with men before, but with Yanri as his only contact in Luminaria, and if this were leading to something, this would be his first relationship since Serena. Osmond really didn't need any other complications right now.
I'm just looking to sleep, big guy,
Yanri assured Osmond, sensing his hesitation.
But I do cuddle, so be aware,
he laughed. Osmond tried to set aside his reservations and similarly stripped down to his underbreeches. He laid down on his back, arms to his sides beside Yanri, stiffly keeping to his side of the bed. Yanri rolled onto his side, looking at Osmond.
Hey, Wonder Toes, you're making it weird.
Osmond turned his head to look back at Yanri, trying to look innocent.
Kiss me,
Yanri stated matter-of-factly.
What?
Osmond questioned, not sure if he had heard correctly. Before he could say another word, Yanri pressed his lips into Osmond's. He was initially startled, but having been without human contact and affection for so long, he reflexively returned the kiss. Yanri was the first to pull away.
So you get any keel out of that? Love knots, lust burn, anything?
Yanri's eyes scanned Osmond's face as he asked. Osmond did a quick self-check. No emotions had manifested as keel anywhere across his body. The kiss held nothing more than just feeling nice on his lips.
Good. Me neither. If it changes, let me know,
Yanri stated plainly.
Now relax and get some sleep.
Yanri threw his arm over Osmond's chest and snuggled in tightly against him. Osmond smiled and lifted his arm, wrapping it around Yanri. With the ocean breeze blowing across them, Osmond slept better than he had in decades.